Guys, welcome to another video. You've got Mr. Everything English, and today is a tough one. Today we are talking about that part of English that everyone gives you but they don't teach you, and that is the effect.
Everything education. Tuition for maths, English and science.
How exactly do you go about explaining the effect of a simile or a metaphor or a structural device? How do you go about explaining the effect of anything? It is a very hard thing to teach. That's why, to be honest with you, that's why very few people actually teach it. They'll tell you to go and do the effect, but they don't really teach you how you go and try to do the effect. Now, just a few rules before we begin. In English, are we explaining the effect of the technique or the effect of the quote? When you explain the effect, you are talking about the technique. When you are talking about the quote, this is called inference. You're looking at the quote as it is, and you're looking at what has the writer said. But in English literature, we are not told to do inference by itself. We are told to explain the effect. That is why, guys, the first rule you must understand is you are looking at what is the effect of the technique. So if you're going to pick out a simile, talk about the simile. If you're going to pick out juxtaposition, talk about juxtaposition. So many students pick out a language device or a structural device and they just kind of glaze over it. They ignore it. The writer uses a simile, thanks for telling me, and then they move on. If you're going to pick out a simile, talk about a simile. Now, this is my first point of discussion. First point of discussion. For you to explain the effect of a technique, you need to even understand what that technique actually is. So a simile. When you're talking about a simile, what should go through your mind? A simile is when you compare two nouns. You should be starting to think, why did the writer compare that to that? Why? What were they trying to tell us? What message were they trying to put across through the comparison? And what did they compare? Did they compare the looks? Did they compare the color? Did they compare feelings? Similes are all about comparisons using like or as. Juxtaposition. These are contrasting ideas. These are two opposite ideas. Now, if you're talking about juxtaposition, you need to know, firstly, that juxtaposition is when you have two opposite ideas, two contrasting ideas. But the question you should be asking yourself is, okay, why? Why did the writer choose to present that like that? For example, why did Shakespeare, out of all the characters, why did he choose Macbeth, the bravest, apparently most loyal servant of the king, to kill the king? Because that's juxtaposition. Macbeth should be protecting the king, but this man is the one who kills him. Why him? Okay, makes it more dramatic. Shows how human nature in all of us, no matter who you are, can be targeted. If Macbeth can go down, there's no hope for anybody else. Do you see? You're looking at the juxtaposition specifically. If you're looking at personification, personification is when you give a non-human a human feature. Now, sometimes, what do people say? For example, personification is, you can't see the door, but there's a door over there. The door is standing in the corner. That is personification, but and what? What are you going to do with it? You must think about what is the effect of this particular object being given a human feature. And this is where I bring in rule number 2. So rule number 1, guys, is that you must understand the device you are picking. Rule number 2. Just because it's a device doesn't mean it's effective. Very important rule. So many year 11s, they pick the first technique they find. I got a simile. I've got alliteration. I've got imagery. Okay, fine, pause. Just because it has a technique, is it worth talking about? Or shall we leave it? Because, for example, alliteration. Alliteration is when words in a row start with the same letter. Sometimes maybe the writer did that without meaning to. It doesn't mean it's effective. Look for a good example. Look for where it has an effect. Maybe it creates a particular sound or a tone. Imagery. My God, I hate imagery. Every single thing causes imagery because everything puts a picture in our head. So guys, the second rule, make sure you're thoughtful with what you pick. Don't just settle for any random device. I think it was June 2023. I think that was the hyena one in the English language exam, the hyena extract. And that extract was, the most popular quote that everyone chose was, "The hyena was ugly beyond redemption." And so many students chose that quote and they didn't know what to do with that quote. They didn't even understand the quote. And that brings me to the last rule, rule number 3. When you're selecting your quotes, make sure you have some idea as to what they're talking about. That might sound like a basic piece of advice, but guys, so many year 11s will pick a quote. "Sir, I got a quote, but I don't know what to do with it." Okay, then why did you pick it? "I don't know." Guys, always pick quotes that you understand to some extent, because in your exam, you're going to be there by yourself. So guys, first 3 rules. Number 1, make sure you understand to some extent what specifically the devices are. What is juxtaposition? What is personification? What is simile? What is a metaphor? And so on. Number 2, guys, when you're picking your techniques, don't just settle for the first one. Pick what you think has something worth discussing. And number 3, guys, when you pick your quote, which we're going to find the technique inside, make sure you understand that quote to some extent. If you don't understand the quote, leave it. It's no point. Pick something else. Pick a word if you have to. But always pick something you understand, because it will allow you to discuss it later. Now, imagine you've done those 3 things. How then do you explain the effect? Now we're going to switch over to the board and I'm going to teach you my method of how you explain the effect.
Everything education. Tuition for maths, English and science.
Okay guys, we're going to use this as our quote to build an effect. Now, you all know, if you're watching this video, hopefully you know that the paragraph structure that I follow and that I've always followed is pretzel. Now, I've made a previous video explaining how we go about doing the point, the reference, and the technique, because that's the build up to the effect. So if you haven't watched that video, go back and watch that video so you know how to do the first 3 steps. But in this video, guys, I'm going to focus solely on the effect. How do you get to grips with the effect? How do you make sure that your effect isn't 1 line long? Guys, very simple. The first thing you do is you read the question. The question says, how does the writer use language to describe Zoe's feelings? And the quote that I'm going to use, guys, is the quote, "I am an eagle." So guys, the first thing I do is I write down the quote. I am an eagle. Okay, fantastic. Done. That's my quote. Now, what technique exists in this quote? Because if it hasn't got a technique, then I can't do the effect. Now, in this quote, guys, I'm going to say that the writer has used a metaphor. What is a metaphor? A metaphor is when you compare 2 nouns without like or as. So here, Zoe is the first noun, the eagle is the second noun, and she's comparing herself to an eagle without like or as. Done. Tick, 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 tick. Now I'm ready for my effect. How now do we do the effect? Step number 1, guys, when it comes to the effect. Always, 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 guys, begin with a basic effect. A simple, basic effect. Don't try to be clever. Don't make your life hard. Don't write in detail. Just simply think about what is the most basic effect of what I found. So In this one, Zoe compares herself to an eagle. Not a mouse, not a rat, not a squirrel, but she chooses, out of all the comparisons she could have made, she chose to compare herself to an eagle. Why? Very simple, very basic point, guys. Eagles are powerful and eagles are brave. So the first effect of the metaphor, the first effect of Zoe comparing herself to an eagle is what? It shows us that Zoe understands that she has to be powerful and she has to be brave. Done. That should make sense to everyone, guys. Very simple, very straightforward. Now, after we've given a basic effect, we then move on to the next part of how we do the effect. Now explain the effect of the basic effect. The way we elaborate our response, guys, the way we add detail to our response is we work on ourselves. What do I mean by that? You analyze your own effect. So, my first effect was that Zoe is powerful, Zoe is brave. Okay, fine. What's the effect of Zoe being powerful and Zoe being brave? The effect of that, guys, is that it shows us that Zoe understands the task ahead of her. It is not easy. It requires the task ahead, guys. It requires certain skills. That's the second effect. Again, very straightforward, very easy peasy. The first effect, I'll say it again. The first effect was that Zoe is powerful and that Zoe is brave. The second effect that we're finding, guys, is that because Zoe is powerful, because Zoe is brave, she's not about to eat lunch. She's not about to watch a YouTube video. She's not about to go for a jog. She understands, guys, she understands the task at hand. She understands what it will take from her and that she will need certain skills. Hence, she's comparing herself to an eagle. So that's my basic effect and the explanation of my basic effect complete. Now, do you see? I'm working on my own work. I'm not starting a brand new effect. I'm simply questioning my own writing. So, okay, fine. So I said that this shows Zoe's powerful and brave. Okay, fine. What's the impact of that? Why does she need to be powerful and brave? Okay, fine. The fact that she's powerful and brave shows that what she's about to do is hard. It's not easy. And it requires a certain skill set. Okay, let's go for one more, guys. The third step to understanding the effect is effect number 2. We explain the effect of effect number 2. What do I mean by that? So, over here I said that because she's going to be brave and powerful, this shows that Zoe understands that the task at hand isn't easy. The task at hand requires a certain skill set. What's the effect of that? What is the effect that the task at hand requires a certain skill set? Okay, what certain skill set does she need? Okay, let's go back. What does she compare herself to? An eagle. So now we think about what's the effect of this? What's the certain skills that she requires? Is that Zoe must battle the winds. She must fly like an eagle. And ultimately, like an eagle, this will allow her to achieve her freedom. Now, let's go through all of this, guys. Let's go through all of this bit by bit. Now, this method, guys, that I use is called the effect. Where is it going? The effect of the effect of the effect. I always say it, guys. You have to always think about what is the effect of my own writing. Otherwise, what are you going to do? You're going to be stuck. If you don't start looking at the effect of your effect, you're going to be stuck. And trust me, guys, when you think about it, it's not a hard method. Practice will make it perfect. The first thing you do is you think of a simple, dimple, basic effect. My effect was that the fact that Zoe in the metaphor compares herself to an eagle, this shows that Zoe understands that she's brave and she's powerful because she's like an eagle. Woohoo. Okay, fine. What's the effect of that? Why did she compare herself to an eagle? Why not a rat? Why not a mouse? Because we understand that by comparing herself to an eagle, she shows us, the reader, that the task ahead of her isn't easy. It's a tough task and requires certain skill sets. Those skill sets are specifically of an eagle. So what is the effect of this? The effect of this is, now these skill sets, just like an eagle, we are now realizing that Zoe has to battle with the winds, because if you read the extract, it's about her skiing on the mountain. So she must battle against the wind, and like the eagle, she must own the mountain. She must be free in the skies, because ultimately, if Zoe wants to own the mountains, if she wants to be successful, if she wants to achieve freedom on the mountain, then she must perform like this eagle. We did that, guys, as one effect. This is all one effect. Even though we broke it down into the effect of the effect of the effect, even though it's broken down into 3 separate effects, when we write up this effect or any effect, when we do the write-up, this will read as one complete effect. The examiner won't know that we split it up. But the beauty of splitting it up, guys, is that it allows you to write a decent amount. The majority of students, I'm not even joking, guys, the majority of students in the country will do that and then expect a grade 9. They'll write like one line. The metaphor shows that Zoe's brave. Okay, and you need to carry on and carry on. I always say, guys, in your first effect, so in this effect over here, do it 3 times. And in this effect over here, do it twice. That will allow your paragraph to have 2 fantastic effects with appropriate detail throughout. But guys, really give this method a shot. I'll say it again. Think of a basic effect, then ask yourself, what's the effect of my basic effect? And then what's the effect of that? And let's say I was turning all of this into a paragraph. This is how it might sound. In source A, the writer presents the character of Zoe as being extremely courageous. This can be seen in the quotation, "I am an eagle." Here, the metaphor illustrates how the character of Zoe comes across as being very brave and very powerful. This bravery that she displays reveals to the reader how Zoe is about to do something that requires a certain level of courage. The task at hand is not easy. The task at hand requires a certain skill set for her to be successful. Let's carry on. Now, the fact that Zoe chose an eagle out of all animals, implies that this skill set must allow her to battle against the winds. This skill set must allow her to roam the skies and be successful. Because if she wants to own the mountain, if she wants to be free like an eagle up in the mountains, then Zoe has to ensure that she's able to adopt the mindset and the physical skill sets of this eagle. That's how roughly the paragraph would sound if you were to piece these together. Alright guys, I hope you found this video beneficial. It's been Mr. Everything English. Peace.